life empowered is closer than you think. We're all looking for a better way. Reimagine what's next with a new sense of exuberance. Why not power on like you mean it? Or power off blissfully? A better sleep is a better awake. You've never moved like this before. With the energy nature intended. Imagine reprogramming the way you look at the speed of science. At longevity. At exhilaration. It's next level rejuvenation. Take control of your well-being from the inside out and outside in. The light within is ready to ignite. Be the light. LifeWave.
Hey y'all, it's JP and Max here to do a quick woo-way. Well, a lot of things going on in the Devil's Chessboard. Pretty much all the power of Ukraine's been knocked out by Russia. Elon Musk cut off the satellite communication for Russians, which was, I reported on last week, which was pretty strange, that Russia was even using American satellites to bomb and kill Ukrainians, but that's what's going on. And so that stopped. But pretty much the Ukrainians are without power. Zelensky doesn't want to agree to giving up the Donbass. That's a big thing in the agreement. He's got to give up the Donbass. And really, he's on his last legs again. I don't think there's much he can do at this point. But his masters in London, his controllers, the Rothschilds, Larry Fink and those guys, they want to keep this war going. They want to keep the grift going because they're making money. And if you remember Epstein was talking to, trying to communicate with Putin, also with Ukraine. When the Maidan coup happened, he was making a lot of money off of what? Sex trafficking. Ukraine was #1 sex trafficking in Europe for years. I read that in the FBI report. That was like a decade ago. So imagine how bad the sex trafficking is. Body, organ harvesting, you know, all the black market, adrenochrome, it's all going through Ukraine. Isn't that right, Max? Yeah, it is. Go. He's really got that thing chewed up. So here's a couple clips from South Front Telegram. And I think now drone warfare is going to be cut down quite a bit because of the satellite ending. So that should help Ukraine out quite a bit in this war. So other than that, here's a couple clips. We're about 80 seconds to midnight. JP out.
The United States has fired the first shot against Iran, despite engaging in efforts to de-escalate tensions that began with the start of the year after President Donald Trump threatened the Islamic Republic over a wave of protests that turned deadly. Late in January, the U.S. military buildup in the Middle East, which began shortly after Trump made his first threat to Iran, reached a whole new level. The USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier and its strike group entered the Arabian Sea on January 26th, and around the same time, the U.S. military's most advanced electronic warfare aircraft, the EA-37B Compass Core, was sent to the region. The following day saw the deployment of more warplanes to the Middle East, including F-35A Lightning II fighter jets, EA-18G Growler electronic attack jets, E-11A Battlefield Airborne Communications Node aircraft, an RC-135V Rivet Joint Signal Intelligence plane, HC-130J Combat King II search and rescue aircraft, and an MC-130J Commando II Special Operations plane. Other military assets, mainly MIM-104 Patriot and Terminal High Altitude Area Defense air defense systems, were also sent to the region. El Udeid Air Base in Qatar, Muwafaq Salti Air Base in Jordan, and Ali El Salem Air Base in Kuwait have been the focal point of this military buildup. Amid this escalation, on February 2nd, it was confirmed that the US and Iran have agreed to hold talks after mediation from Turkey and other regional powers. Despite both sides showing some optimism, more escalation was reported on February 3rd. 3 pairs of Iranian gunboats approached a U.S.-flagged tanker in the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. warship quickly intervened and escorted the tanker, the Stena Imperative. Later on in the day, a U.S. Navy F-35 shot down an Iranian drone that harassed the USS Abraham Lincoln. These incidents didn't affect the plans for the talks. However, a demand by Tehran on February 4th to move the talks from Istanbul to Oman's Muscat and limit the scope of discussions to the nuclear issue led to a problem. Washington eventually agreed to hold the talks in Muscat on February 6th, but is still insisting on including Iran's missile program and its support for its regional allies in the agenda. The upcoming talks will not likely produce any result. The two sides are too far apart, even on the nuclear issue. The U.S. likely agreed to the talks to calm down its regional allies and to distract Iran. The same tactic was employed before Israel attacked the Islamic Republic in June of last year. On February 3rd, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky informed the media that Russia had violated the ceasefire by launching strikes ahead of schedule. The Ukrainian leader expressed extreme indignation and urged Western countries to address these flagrant violations of the agreements. However, his statements were refuted by U.S. President Donald Trump. In response to a question, Trump said that he had asked his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin to stop the strikes from Sunday to Sunday. Putin kept his word, Trump said. On the night of January 4th, Ukraine reported rocket and drone strikes on energy facilities throughout the country. Russian troops struck the Odessa region, as well as the cities of Zaporizhia, Kharkov, and Sumy. A Ukrainian Army HIMARS missile system was found and destroyed in Yurenchakovo, a village in the Kharkov region. The command post and service personnel were also hit. These types of missile systems have become a real problem for the Russian army. They are used to destroy command posts, complexes, air defense systems, and concentrations of personnel and equipment. Only about 40 of these systems have been supplied to the Ukrainian army. Russian troops are hunting down the HIMARS systems. Each group of troops has an Iskander OTRK crew on duty. As soon as Ukrainian systems are detected, the Russians strike them. Russian troops maintain the initiative on the section of the front south of Kupiansk. According to reports from February 3rd, advanced assault groups were spotted in the Kulovka and Pesternoye areas. South of Slavyansk, the city of Konstantinovka remains the most active point. Fighting continues in the southeastern part of the city. The area north of the Klebenbek Reservoir is being cleared. The Russian armed forces have reportedly had success in Turetskoye, which is 8 kilometers from Drushkivka. The Russian armed forces' continued penetration of the Ukrainian troops' defenses is creating conditions for the encirclement of the agglomeration from the southwest. The front line, the Zaporizhia region, remains relatively stable. However, neither side is reducing the intensity of hostilities. As of February 4th, the heaviest fighting is taking place in Magdaleniivka. Capturing the village is necessary to secure the left flank of the advancing Russian troops. The main direction of movement is towards Yurkovka and Tavrishke. Capturing these settlements will make it extremely difficult to supply the city of Orakov. After an offensive in various parts of northern Ukraine, Russian troops have paused. This may indicate that command is assessing the Ukrainian army's response to new crisis points. Further actions will be taken based on Ukrainian troop and reserve movements.
The energy truce is over. More than 400 strike weapons, including drones, cruise missiles, and ballistic missiles, were used against targets in Ukraine overnight. Thermal power plants and stations that exclusively supplied heat to areas in Kiev, Kharkiv, and Dnipro were hit. TPP-6 in Kharkiv, the Dnipro thermal power plant, and the Trypilska thermal power plant in the Kiev region were among the targets. Chugiev, part of Kharkiv, and the Sumy region were left without power. With temperatures reaching minus 21 degrees Celsius, Kharkiv authorities decided to drain the heating pipes in 820 homes to prevent them from freezing. Against the backdrop of a severe energy crisis, the operational situation on the front lines is also not in Kiev's favor. The large Russian breakthrough in the Mylaipil area of the Sumy region is of great importance. First and foremost, the Ukrainian army will have to withdraw additional forces from other areas. All the main forces in this area are concentrated north of the city of Sumy. Consequently, either the defense will be weakened or a less significant part of the border will remain completely unprotected. The situation at Kupiansk remains challenging for both sides. The Russian command has pinned down most of the Ukrainian reserves in battles for the city. Meanwhile, Ukrainian units have not achieved any significant successes. An earlier attempt to advance north of the city to isolate Russian troops failed. The Russian army then launched a counteroffensive, pushing back Ukrainian positions considerably. The large logistics hub of Kondrashovka is now in a gray zone, and transit through the town is impossible. Russian advance units have reached the outskirts of Moscow, where the main railway line passes through. Despite losing the northwestern and southwestern outskirts, the central part of Kupiansk remains behind Russian troops. The Ukrainian army's lack of visible success indicates one thing: its combat-ready reserves are depleted. The day before, the Russian army began a comprehensive offensive on 7 different fronts in northern Ukraine. So far, there have been no reports of counterattacks from Ukraine. On the front lines of the Slavyansk-Kramatorsk agglomeration, the Russian command's plan is gradually becoming clear. To understand it, we must look at the situation from an operational rather than tactical perspective. The 2 largest cities in the Donetsk region are already half surrounded. Russian troops are approaching Sviatogorsk from the north and Drobopilya from the south. It is unlikely that the Russian command will let this favorable situation slip away. Therefore, we can expect the largest encirclement of Ukrainian troops in the history of the conflict in 2026.